which was B rank as a clear reward. And because Kang had completed Stage 3 in the shortest time possible, a new world record, he earned an additional reward, a title, the Undying League, which would increase his stats by 1. Kang paused for a moment, thinking, I completed Stage 3 in just 2 days. It had taken him weeks to complete Stage 2, and everyone knew what a mess he had been in Stage 1. Am I really a genius? He became very happy, imagining that if he kept clearing stages at this rate, he would complete Stage 4 in just a few minutes. He started fantasizing about himself as a legendary knight standing atop a slain dragon, but reality quickly caught up with him. A month had passed, and Kang still hadn't completed Stage 4. One morning, while cooking and watching the news, Kang suddenly woke up screaming. Juhi, his sister, wasn't even surprised. It had become a routine. She sighed and muttered, "There he goes again with his bullshit." She turned off the gas stove and remarked that if Kang kept waking up screaming like this, the neighbors would think she was killing him every morning. Juhi asked Kang, "What happened today? Did you slip, hit your head on a rock, and die?" She was clearly making fun of him. But then we see a very thick leg step out of Kang's room. In a loud voice, someone shouted, "I cleared it, you idiot!" Juhi, still half asleep, but then she saw Kang, his whole body wrapped in a red aura, screaming, "I just fucked everyone up!" Juhi didn't take Kang's words seriously at first, but as he stepped into the light, she was shocked, bewildered, and confused. She couldn't speak for a moment, but then she screamed, "What happened to you?" Standing in front of her was Kang, his body now swollen and twice the size it used to be, muscles bulging, his entire frame having become 10 times. After some time, we see Juhi, confused and bewildered, sitting down to have breakfast with Kang. She couldn't help but ask, "How did you become like this, Kang?" Kang, clearly very annoyed and frustrated, snapped back, "This tutorial won't let me live in peace. It's turned my life into hell." Juhi, still not fully understanding, said, "All that's fine, but day by day you're starting to look more like a criminal." Kang, with a hint of sarcasm, joked, "Wow, thanks. My little sister thinks I look like a criminal." And just like that, the two of them fell into their typical brother-sister bickering. After a while, with a serious expression, Kang explained that Stage 4 wasn't as hard as it seemed. Stage 4's theme was leadership, he began. All I had to do was lead a party, go inside the dungeon, and destroy its core. Simple, right? In the beginning, his party members seemed kind and helpful, but soon they started arguing, fighting over who would take the lead, how the resources would be managed, who would get the drops. Somehow, Kang managed to convince everyone and took over as the leader. After clearing Stage 3, he had acquired the intermediate body regeneration ability, a B-grade skill that allowed any cuts, burns, or fractures to regenerate automatically using mana. This made it easier for him to lead the group. Juhi, curious, asked, "If everything was going so well, why did it take you a month to complete Stage 4? Hearing this, Kang's mood shifted. He became depressed and didn't say anything for a moment. Then, with a deep and frustrated voice, he said, "The trouble started that night. Every time I fell asleep, my so-called party members would murder me in my sleep." Kang's voice grew louder as he recalled the events. "Those bastards were supposed to take turns keeping watch, but every single time I went to sleep, despite all I did for them, some party member would kill me in my sleep." This happened to Kang repeatedly for an entire month. He shouted so loudly in his frustration that he spilled food all over Juhi's face. Juhi, wiping her face angrily, snapped, "Eat first, then talk, you crazy bastard!" Kang, now a bit calmer, started eating slowly. After a few bites, Juhi asked, "So how did Kang manage to complete Stage 4 today?" At this, Kang finally broke down. He started laughing like a psychopath, like a man who had lost his mind, with saliva dripping from his mouth. His eyes glowed red as he said, "I just eliminated all the annoying pests and moved on." The scene flashed back to the previous day. Kang stood with his party members who, as usual, started arguing. But this time, Kang's patience snapped. All the veins in his face popped out as he shouted, "To hell with the system! To hell with leadership!" He roared so loudly, using his lion's roar, that everyone's ears almost burst. One of the party members, a witch who had killed Kang the most times, started yelling at him, asking what he was doing. But Kang was beyond reason. He pointed his sword at her chest and, with deadly eyes and a deep voice, said, "From now on, you all will follow my instructions. If anyone even itches without my permission, I will cut them from head to toe." Another party member, a yellow-haired guy named Pidu, tried to protest. "Are you crazy? Why should we listen to you?" But before he could finish his sentence, Kang punched him hard, not just once, He kept punching him until Pidu was nearly dead. His face swelled up, his teeth were broken, and he cried so hard he couldn't even speak. He just nodded, saying, "I agree." The others were in shock, including the girl who started crying. After a moment, Kang, with that same deadly expression, repeated, "If anyone even itches without my permission, I will make sure you will beg me to die." After this, Kang went on a rampage, speed running through the dungeon. He raided it 29 times, so he remembers every routes. So just in 8 hours, without sleeping, Kang slaughtering all the monsters one by one. He reached the dungeon's core and destroyed it in an instant. As soon as he did, the system congratulated Kang for completing Stage 4, awarding him a Ring of Strong Mind, a B-grade item. Kang's status window showed that he was now level 15, with strength at 17, agility at 16, endurance at 17, and magic at 15. By this time, Kang had raided the dungeon 30 times, collecting a vast amount of loot in his inventory: armor, weapons, pearls, magic stones. But he didn't even know what they were for. The Ring of Strong Mind made Kang immune to any mental attacks. Despite all the strength he had gained in the tutorial, none of it seemed to matter in the real world. But after Stage 5, Kang's body became the same as it was in the tutorial. He tried many times to use his powers, but he was still unable to do so. Right now, Kang was doing push-ups, his body now thick, muscular, and juicy. What a body! He finally completed his 1,000th push-up with one hand, sweat dripping from his body and evaporating as heat. After his push-up session, he wiped the sweat off and thought, "When will I finally complete Stage 8? As he pondered this, his phone rang. He thought it was just an ad, but as soon as he read the message, the ground beneath his feet trembled. There was a dungeon breakout, and the monster from that dungeon was a goblin. And this dungeon had opened right in front of the place where Juhi worked. Kang didn't waste a second. He ran to his house, searching frantically for a weapon. He looked left and right, panicking, cursing under his breath. Finally, he found a kitchen knife in the basin. Without wasting another moment, he grabbed it and dashed out of the house. A short while later, Kang stood outside Juhi's office. He took a deep breath and shouted, "It's been a while, you son of a chicken lollipop!" Hearing Kang's voice, all the goblins were immediately attracted to him. Kang was a little disappointed, thinking, as expected, I still can't use my skills. But that was a different story. Hearing Kang's outburst, all the goblins started running towards him, ready to kill. But instead of fear, Kang was filled with joy. He cursed the goblins, saying, "Why do you sound like monkeys?" Inside, Kang was cautious, realizing that this was his first time fighting real monsters outside the tutorial. He wondered if these goblins were more powerful or weaker than the ones in the tutorial. Pushing those thoughts aside, he gripped his knife like a pro and, in a single moment, sliced off a goblin's head with a satisfying smile. The goblin died instantly, and Kang, with a deadly and sinister smile, thanked all the goblins, saying, "In the first stage, I couldn't satisfy my hunger by killing only 4 or 5 goblins. Until I kill more than 100 goblins, I won't find peace." He pulled his kitchen knife out of the goblin's head and started slaughtering the goblins one by one. Meanwhile, inside Juhi's office, all the workers barricaded the entrance door with all the furniture they could find. But outside, someone was laughing like crazy, and heavy footsteps echoed as they approached the building. Everyone, including Juhi, was terrified. Juhi looked at her phone, and there was a message from Kang asking if she was still in the office. "If you are, then stay there," he wrote. Juhi was confused. Is Kang coming here? She wondered. But before she could complete her thought, that maniacal laughter grew louder, and the footsteps grew heavier. Suddenly, Kang burst through the door, smashing through all the heavy furniture. Covered in goblin blood, Kang stood there with a satisfying smile, like a psychopathic, cold-hearted murderer. Smiling, he said, "Juhi! Your big brother is here." After a moment, everyone paused for a couple of seconds, just staring at Kang. They couldn't quite comprehend who this psychopath in front of them was. Even Juhi, seeing Kang in this condition, felt embarrassed. All her friends started glancing at her, their eyes filled with confusion and disbelief. Kang stood there, a kitchen knife slung over his shoulder, scanning the office as if trying to process that Juhi actually worked here. But before he could say anything, an old man, the department head, freaked out. He shouted at Kang, "Who the hell are you? And how did you break down the door to get inside?" At this rate, all the monsters. Before the man could finish his sentence, Kang politely apologized, saying he couldn't control his powers and accidentally used too much strength. But don't worry, I've already sent all the